And now, here's your host of Shaping Success, Wes Tankersley.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to Shaping Success. I'm your host, Wes Tankersley. We always got a little technical difficulties, but my guest right here is Craig Daigle. He's hopped on right here. I was going to say something before, but now, hey, we're just going to roll with it. Craig is a friend of mine that I had met through Nikki P, who we do the radio show with, and he's also a Beachbody coach, a life coach, a speaker. He's been through a lot of stuff. Craig, thanks for hanging out with us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Wes. I've been really looking forward to joining you and talking to your community and hoping to help everybody out. And I love what you guys are doing over here.
Yeah, I really appreciate you hanging out and taking the time, because I think that it's pretty important for people to see people's stories, where they come from, how they do things, and the types of situations that they have going on. And you've been through a lot. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So, 41 years old. I'm a father of 4 sons. 3 are biologically mine. One of them is a bonus son that I have with my wife. I currently live in Oklahoma. I sound like I'm from Oklahoma, right? But I'm not from Oklahoma. I moved to Oklahoma in 2019, and the path to Oklahoma was it was a pretty crazy path. I'm gonna give you a little bit of the cliff notes, and then you pick and part, and we'll dive into each section.
Before you get into you said you're from Oklahoma, but you said you sound like you're from Oklahoma, but I don't think so. I'm guessing
No.
maybe like New York or over that way.
Yes, I was born in Methuen, Massachusetts, about 20 minutes north of Boston, and I lived on the New Hampshire, Massachusetts border my entire life.
So are you kind of a fish out of water in Oklahoma?
I am, but it's crazy. I mean, if for the most part, life is much slower here than it is on the East Coast. Even just how people, not just how they move, but how they speak, how they talk, everything is. So when I get into a conversation with somebody, forget about it. They're just looking at me like they don't know what I'm saying. They're hearing me, drop my R's when I talk about car and park and all that stuff. And they're just kind of looking at me like they don't know what to do. But it's been a very crazy experience, because I moved here October 2019, so I was here for a few months, and then the pandemic hit. So like I'm kind of still fresh to Oklahoma.
Haven't really figured
it's
it
like
out yet.
Nah, it's everything kind of like the world erupted when I got here. So it's been crazy.
Awesome, man. That's kind of crazy though. Just like you said, pandemic kind of just changes everything, right? It just kind of makes things completely different, and you got to figure out a lot of things. How has that affected you in what you're doing?
It didn't really affect what I was doing, other than pulling me off of live events and pulling me off of stages was kind of detrimental to me mentally. I was at the time pretty much traveling around the country, speaking at events, sharing my story. It just kind of moved virtual at that point. And as far as, business and everything, my business boomed. Obviously, everybody was stuck at home. And mental health is like, it's something that I speak openly about. I speak openly about men's mental health, mainly for the fact that 1 in 4 people who die from suicide are men. 1 in 4 people, no, 4 of those people, one of them is female. So for every 4 people that die from suicide are men. And I'm like, that statistic is crazy to me, to know that so many men. And I think about the times, I don't think that I was ever to the point where I was gonna, attempt it, but the thoughts that poured in my mind over the years of, people would be better off in my life, like things would be easier, things would be simpler. I wouldn't have to deal with so much anymore. I could just forget about it and end it all right now. Like, those thoughts have crossed my mind. They were there. They were predominant in the forefront of my process of some of the things I went through and the decisions that I made. were not that. They were choices. It's crazy, Wes. I used to say um, this phrase, and you may have heard that, and anybody listening has probably said this, right? When you're going through some crazy stuff and you're making it happen, and people in your life who are supporting you or are proud of you, they're like, their response to it is, I don't know how you do it. Like that's their response, right? And immediately your response back is, I don't have a choice. And that was the response that I made constantly until I was corrected by one of the clients that I connected with early on in my transition as a single father, fresh out of divorce, going through a lot of stuff. I was working 80 hours a week and I was working out every single day. I was constantly working on nutrition and fitness. And he said to me, man, I don't know how you do it. And I said, I don't have a choice. And he goes, I'm going to stop you right there. And I said, for what? Like, here's my ego and pride building up inside of me. Like, what is this guy talking about? And he said, I'm going to correct you because you're wrong. You are dead wrong. He says, you have a choice. You've had many choices. The choice that you chose, I'm going to point out, he goes, you could have turned to drugs and alcohol. You could have gave your kids up for adoption. You could have passed kids off to family members. You could have committed suicide or died by suicide. You could have, there's so many choices that you could have made. He goes, the choice that you made was to not give up. And I was like, I was taken back by that statement because for years I had heard people say, I don't have a choice. I'm doing what I got to do. Like this tough talk that we have to have. No, like I made a choice. The choice that I made was to be the father my kids deserve, to do my best, to try to provide, to fight, to continue to change.
So let's talk about the speaking and the mental health and all this stuff. There's a big story that took place before this whole situation that caused all this
Yeah.
thought process, right? What happened? I mean, I think that one of the biggest things, and we talked about this a little bit before, is that a lot of times when people get divorced or they're in an abusive relationship, it always points towards the male is the abuser and the female is not, right? So what was
Right.
your situation? How did this unravel?
So in 2006, I had my first son, my oldest son. I ended up getting a phone call from a buddy. His mother was unfaithful. She was out at a bar one night, and that was when I first became a single father. During that time, I ended up getting full custody through our custody case, and that was detrimental to my mental health right there. So I was already like on edge about relationships and about women and whatnot. 2 years later, in 2008, I ended up meeting a woman who had two daughters. Her youngest daughter was a year older than my son. She was a single mom, and her older daughter was born with a genetic disorder, and she wasn't medically supposed to survive, and she did. And she survived until she was 7 years old. And while we were dating, her oldest child passed away. We stayed together. We ended up buying a house together. We ended up having a child together. We got married. We had a child together. And during that time, she developed a habit with prescription drugs and alcohol. A lot of it stemming from the grief process of losing her daughter. And I enabled it. I enabled it every single day that it happened, because who am I to say how you handle that? I can't say that I would be okay. Like, I don't know that I would be. I would like to think that I would handle it differently, but I don't know. During that time, drugs and alcohol, man, like this, she would get so high or so drunk that she didn't know what was going on. So there were a lot of domestic situations, mostly verbal. It got physical quite a few times. And as far as physical, like, was I scared for my life? No, unless I was asleep. I was afraid to go to bed at times, man. Like, um, My ex-wife, she was 5 feet tall, 100 pounds. At the time, I was pushing 400, 450. I was completely unhealthy. Depression just ate me alive in that marriage. So anytime that cops were involved, whether it was the neighbors that called it, there were times we were living in an apartment. Anytime they arrived, I was automatically pulled aside, detained, I'll say. I wasn't handcuffed all the time. There were times that I was. The thing that saved me every single time, though, Wes, was our children. And it would be, and you know, I wish they didn't witness the things that they did. And I thank God every day that they did, because if they didn't, they would have been responding with, I don't know, I didn't see what happened, or I don't know what happened. You know what I mean? It would have been a
Right.
different response than, my dad didn't do that. My dad would never do that. My dad was defending himself. You know what I mean? And
Right.
and they were young, man. My oldest, shoot, he was probably like 6 or 7 at the time. And my stepdaughter, was 8 or 9. Um, when some of these times happened, and it was it was horrific for kids to go through. I'll tell you what, though, like, if you're in a domestic situation, I'm going to tell you right now, like, kids are absolutely resilient. But whatever excuse you're using to stay in that situation and not change things, stop. Like, get over yourself, number one, and get help, because I did it for 8 years. For 8 years, I stayed in an environment, in a situation that I didn't belong to be in, and our children didn't belong in. And we're all better off for it now. Like, all of us, every single individual involved is better off.
What was your as a child growing up? What was your family dynamic like? So like we're the same age. I'm a little bit older than you, but I'm 42, so I'm just a little bit older than you. Just turned 42. My household, it was my parents have been married for 30 plus years now, maybe 40. And I gotta think about it really. Yeah, I think it's 30 something. Anyway, they've been married for a long time. They argued a lot, they fought a lot, but it was like always like, we're gonna stay together, we're gonna make this work. And it's it wasn't like it was like crazy dynamic or anything like that. But that was kind of you didn't get divorced back then, right? If you got divorced, it was like a faux pas or whatever. It was like, you're not a good person because you get a divorce. You're supposed to stay married. You're supposed to work it out. I mean, was that the way it was in your house, and that kind of the way you were looking at it, or what was that like?
I mean, that's kind of the way that it was in my house. My parents have been married 41 years. My parents were young parents. I'm the oldest of three. My parents are still together. And again, like, I watched and witnessed plenty of ups and downs in their life that would affect their marriage, but they're still together. Um, no, you want to know what held me there was the thing that I told myself was, I didn't think that I could handle being a single parent with all the children, but I knew that I needed to for them. But I also didn't know how I would do it, because at the time, I worked. So I've worked industrial maintenance my whole life. So I worked at a power plant at the time, and I would work like 80 hours a week. Plus, I would be on call once every 8 weeks. And I'm like, where are the children going to go?
Right.
And at the time, my parents had moved in 2010 to Arizona. So I'm in New Hampshire, living on the Massachusetts-New Hampshire border, married, going through domestic violence constantly. I put this mask on every day that I was, happy and that things were fine, and did things with our kids. Our kids, functionally were in sports groups, extracurricular stuff, but it was me. It was me doing all the things. It was me just busying our life to keep myself away from all the other things that were going on at home, and just to kind of stay away from home. But I just kept telling myself that I needed to stay there for our children, and our children was what was keeping me there, which is, in hindsight, the dumbest reason ever to stay, because the reason to leave was our children.
Right.
And it was like, it really grabbed me. And you know what, Wes, I honestly would have never gotten out of that situation if it wasn't for a rock bottom. Like, so August 11th, 2015, we're living in an apartment. My youngest son at the time was had just turned 3 years old in May. My stepdaughter was 11. My oldest son was 10. And I'm just kind of like thinking about, how am I going to do this? What am I going to do? And I had gotten her a job. I was working at a local hospital. I was working as a maintenance technician, and I had gotten her a job there. She was a highly educated person. She was a respiratory therapist. She had given up her respiratory license because just drugs and alcohol. She just stopped doing things. So I was, kind of trying to turn her life around again. I was fighting for her at the time, and I got her a job at the hospital that I worked at. And I got home, and she was working second shift. I worked first shift. I got home with the kids. I was making the kids dinner. All of a sudden, like a couple hours after she was supposed to be at work, and she met me at work to drop the kids off. A couple hours later, she comes home, and I'm like, why are you home so early? And they're like, oh, they let me leave early. And then I smelled it. I smelled alcohol on her breath. And I'm like, what do you mean they sent you home early? And I'm like, why do you reek like alcohol? Like, and she goes, oh, I went out with one of the girls from work and I had been working there a while, and I knew all the people, and I immediately shot a text to the woman that she said that she was out with, and she's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And I'm like, okay, like here we go. Like, this is wrong. Like, this is beyond anything else that was going on. Like, this has brought it to a whole new level. Like, we're making up a complete fabricated story to drink alcohol now at this point because she was supposed to be sober. And it just escalated from there. Like, it just turned into a heated argument. We were living in an apartment, and the neighbors I don't know if it was our building or the building next to us. It was summertime, so the slider was open. Could have been anybody. Could have been somebody walking by. They heard the argument. And they called the cops, which I'm so thankful that they did, because at the time that they arrived, it was like gonna get much worse. I remember holding our 3-year-old, and she was hitting me with an oscillating fan, one of those stand fans that just kind of turns in. It was in our living room. She was hitting me with that as I was shielding him in my arms. She was hitting me in the back. The other two kids, I told them to go into the back bedroom. I said, just go in the back bedroom, lock the door. I stuck him in that room with them. I said, watch your little brother. I said, just stay here. I said, I'm going to try and get this to stop. The cops came immediately. The guy comes in, the male cop and a female cop. The male cop comes in, and I don't know if he was trying to prove a point or what he was doing, but he came in, he cuffed me, sat me down on the table. He had ran into her outside of the apartment and got her story first before he came in. And I just sat there quiet. Like,
well, let's talk about this. You said before that she is like 5 foot, right? She's little gal, and you're a big dude. You're what? How tall are you?
6 feet.
6 feet, and you're like pushing 400. You said so. You're this big dude, and the first thing that they walk in, and they always like try to assess the situation and go, "This guy is way bigger than this guy. He's pushing." He's pushing her around, right? So you're basically guilty before just by the way you look.
Yeah. Every single time, brother. Every time. And I had been through it so many times that I knew the drill. So I just stayed quiet. I didn't say a word. I just sat there, and because I didn't know where it was going to go at this point. So I sat there, and the female cop, I noticed her, like, her body language almost. I don't know how to describe it, but she almost looked like she was uneasy by how he was speaking and what he was saying to me. And he I don't even remember all the things that he said to me because it was like such a heated moment, you
Right.
know. But I remember he was like, "Oh, I bet you feel tough," blah blah, like, And I'm paraphrasing. He was saying all this stuff, and I remember fighting to just be quiet. And I'm stubborn. I got a mouth on me. I'm from New England. We're boisterous people.
Right.
I lost it, and I said to him, I said, number one, you're wrong, and when this is all done, I'm gonna have your badge, and I'm gonna ask that you be fired. And he just looked at me like kind of in shock. And I said, before you speak anymore, you might want to figure out what's going on. And that kind of like it de-escalated the moment, because I was angry. I was so angry because not only was I just fighting with my wife at the time, getting hit with things, but now I'm in handcuffs, and now I have this person talking down to me who wasn't there and has no idea what's going on.
Right.
And that's when the female cop said, let's talk to the kids. She went and started talking to the kids, and she came out after like not even a minute and a half of talking to the kids, and immediately took the handcuffs off me. And she looked at the male cop and said, you need to go outside. You can't be in here anymore.
Yeah.
And that was when she kind of took over from inside, and she said, we're gonna have to take a report. I'm gonna ask her to leave. And just what do you want to do? Like, do you want to press charges? Blah blah blah. And of course, in the time, it was 5:30 p.m. on like a Tuesday. I don't even remember. It was the middle of the week, and I'm like, no, I don't want to press charges. Just tell her to go away. Tell her to go to her mother's house or whatever. Tell her to just like stay away for the night. I just figured it was like all the other times.
That's what I was going to say. In your mind, you're still thinking, hey, we're going to put this back together. We're going to fix it, right?
Every single damn time, Wes.
Yeah.
And that was the very beginning of a very long night. She left. We did reports. And then an hour and a half later, she came back. And she was outside the apartment, like banging on the doors, banging on the windows. Our kids are crying. They're terrified. They don't know what to do. And I'm like, the cops came, I would probably say, a half a dozen times over the course of that night, until at one point, it was about 11 p.m. The night shift now we're a whole new
Different
shift
people.
of cops. Yep. The night shift now convinced me to let her back in the apartment at 11 p.m. Yeah. They convinced me to let her back in the apartment. They said, just, she'll stay on the couch. She says she has nowhere to go.
This is in New
you know,
Hampshire.
Yep.
What-
Derry, New Hampshire.
What? Why would they not just like take her to
Dude.
jail?
I still have no idea. She was hammered.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, I mean, okay, you're going to go somewhere else. She's drunk. She's inebriated. Whatever she's got going on she's not in the right mind. Go stick her in a cell for a while and let her relax and chill out and come down from that high before she can come have a normal conversation.
No, they convinced me to let her back into the apartment. I let her back into the apartment, and I told them, letting her back into the apartment, that it was a bad idea. What they told me was her name was on the lease for the apartment, that she had a right to be there just as much as I had a right to be there. And I'm like, it didn't make sense to me, trust me, and it still doesn't make sense to me. But I told them, I said, that's fine. I'll let her in. And I said to them, I said, I guarantee you're going to be back here. I guarantee you're going to be back here. And the minute they left, she was in there. She was walking around the living room, like just being obnoxiously loud. And she was basically explaining her plot. And she said, I'm gonna go to the courthouse tomorrow. I'm gonna tell them all this stuff that you did, and I'm gonna just tell them that you did this, XYZ. I was already back on the phone with the police department, and I had it on speakerphone, and I said to the dispatcher, I said, your officers told me to let her back in. You can hear her in the background. I said, can you hear her clearly? The dispatcher said, yes. I said, do you hear what she's saying? And he said, yes. And I said, okay. I said, as long as there's a record of this, because I haven't done anything and this has been going on too long. So the cops came out for the final time, and the cops are standing in my living room and they're like, okay, we've asked her to leave, but we can't make her stay away. The only thing that we can do is, if you want, it's 2 a.m. now, is we can wake a judge up and we can get an emergency restraining order. And I said, good, wake a judge up. Like, I don't give a shit at this point. I haven't slept. Our poor kids are dealing with this, you know? So I'm like, wake the judge up. If that's what we have to do, wake the judge up. So we woke the judge up. I got an emergency restraining order. I went to the courthouse the next morning to extend it. While I was at the courthouse with our 3 kids, she got into the apartment and took everything in the fridge out and threw it all over the apartment, like literally all the food that we had for our kids. Like, it makes no sense. You know, if you're mad at me, that's fine. But to do that to the kids, it was absolutely insane. And she wasn't in her right state of mind. I don't even know if, she was even sober enough to understand what she was doing.
Yeah.
Like, it was bananas. And there were so many more crazy things that happened after that, stemming from criminal cases, between then and when we actually got divorced, because we're talking, it was August. She ended up filing for guardianship. She signed over guardianship of her daughter to her parents in November of that year. And that was probably like my biggest rock bottom, because I was dad for 8 years. My stepdaughter carried my last name. We had it legally changed so that we all had the same last name in the house. And when she was taken out of our house, I had went to the courthouse to fight the guardianship case, because I got notified. But in the state of New Hampshire, as a step parent, you have no rights, none. So I was basically excused from the hearing, and was the judge. The judge, like, I could tell the judge felt for me and cared, because the judge said to me, I recommend, and I couldn't afford counsel, but he said, I highly suggest that you obtain counsel if you don't understand what paperwork you need to file. But you need to file certain paperwork for you to be in here. You need to file certain paperwork to continue the case. There are things in steps that you need to take. And my mother-in-law at the time, she worked for the courthouse. So it was kind of like they all knew who she was. She knew who all they were. And so I kind of like, I just, it was a losing battle for
Yeah,
me.
it was pretty much
I
stacked against you. You didn't have much of an option with anything.
I didn't have anything. So I basically went to the clerk's office and was like, I asked them, and they're like, we can't give you legal advice. And I was like, whatever. I basically had like just gave up at that point. I said, you know what? I'm going to focus on my son, my oldest son, who I had full custody of. I'm going to focus on him, and I'm going to focus on the son that I had with my ex-wife, the baby in the house. I'm going to focus on my boys. And that was the goal at that point. And it was funny, man. Like, my health was so poor at that time. Like, I was literally a walking heart attack. Like,
Well, I mean, you have to think about, like, I think
stress.
people don't understand all the stuff that's going on, and you're busy taking care of everyone else. What's the one thing that suffers? It's kind of like the mechanic, right? You go to the auto parts
Yep.
or the auto mechanic, and whose car is the worst car in that whole lot? The oil hasn't been changed in 10,000 miles. You know, the
Exactly.
tires have never been rotated. You're just not. You're too busy taking care of everyone else. You can't take care of yourself.
Exactly. And that was the case. And you know what? It wasn't just that. It was, I made plenty of excuses.
Right.
I excused myself because I said I worked too much, said that I couldn't afford to eat healthy. I said that I couldn't exercise because I was too big. Like, there was just, it was a vicious cycle. I ate because I was depressed. I was depressed because I was fat and unhealthy. I was fat and unhealthy because I ate. And it was like
Right. It's just
this circle that just kept going on. But so it was like the tail end of November, and I was like, I knew that I needed to do something, but I wasn't quite ready. So I reached out to my social media, and I was just like, does anybody have an at-home workout DVD that I can do? Like, just let me borrow it. Let me borrow it because I'm not gonna invest it myself. I was already like, it was November, and I'm already looking at New Year's. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
I'm like, okay, if I set myself up for New Year's, I'm gonna make a New Year's resolution. Now,
I hate
this is a
resolutions.
perfect time for This is a perfect time for you and I to have this conversation too,
Yeah.
because this will drop after, but today is December 28th, okay? And
Yep.
the thing is people have been telling themselves for months now, leading up to January, that they're going to make a resolution. They're going to eat healthy. They're going to quit smoking. They're going to do all these things, right? What a New Year's resolution truly is it's a promise to yourself that you intend to break. Like, that's just what it is.
100%.
It literally is. And I was already planning on making this resolution, right? And I reached out to my social media, and a friend had T25. It's, one of the original Beachbody workouts, like P90X, Insanity, and T25. T25
Right.
was like the newer version of Death by Shanti.
So what most people don't know,
So
like with Beachbody though, is that like they have like a diet plan, right? That they try to help you get to do, but they also give you a workout to do as well. They let you choose.
right, right. They basically, so with Beachbody, they have nutrition and supplements and everything. It's a total package. You can use all the tools, or you can just do the workouts, whatever you need to do.
Right.
But all I had was these DVDs. I didn't have the nutrition plan. I didn't have anything. I just had these DVDs given to me, and it was right around Thanksgiving. And I stuck them on the table, and I said, "Okay, see you in January." I was like I was already planning on it.
Yep.
And if it wasn't for what happened and what transpired next, I might not be here to share the story. And I was planning on January 1st to start. And December 1st, 2015, I woke up that morning and I couldn't breathe. I had severe sleep apnea and severe acid reflux, bad cholesterol, high blood pressure, walking heart attack, like I had mentioned before.
Yep.
And I tore off the CPAP machine. I ripped
So
the
you
mask
even had
off.
a
I ripped it.
CPAP.
Yeah, I ripped the mask off, and I wore it because if I didn't, I would have died in my sleep. So I ripped it off my face, and I couldn't breathe. My throat was on fire. It was the acid reflux from being so heavy and laying. I would lay on a decline almost, and I would binge eat before I went to bed because I worked all day. So my eating habits were terrible. I ate like late at night, and basically it was the food that I ate the night before creeped up my esophagus to the point where like now I'm choking.
Yep.
And I tore the mask off, and I ran to the bathroom. We lived in a tiny 2-bedroom apartment at the time. And I remember I ran into the bathroom, and it's a mirror, a sink vanity, a tiny toilet, and a tub shower. And it's like 4x4 in that room. It's tiny. And I was kneeling on the floor in front of the toilet, and I'm dry heaving, but I'm not really dry heaving because I'm just like, I can't breathe and I don't know what to do. And it felt like an eternity of how long I was in that bathroom for. And it was probably only a couple minutes, but I ended up pulling myself up onto the vanity and the sink, and I was purple in the mirror. And now I'm like in shock because I'm realizing like how bad this is right now.
Right.
And I opened the medicine cabinet and I grabbed a sleeve of Tums or Antacid's Rolaids or whatever it was. And I just started eating them. Now, mind you, I can't breathe and I'm
I
putting
know.
stuff in my mouth. And I'm chewing them, and I'm trying to swallow, I'm trying to get them down. And I turned the water onto the faucet and I stuck my head underneath the faucet and I just started filling my mouth with water. And I finally felt everything go down. And I came back up and I took a big, deep breath. And I was just like, it was such a relief. And I remember right before I got that breath, I just started praying because no matter what your belief system is or your relationship is to God as human beings, when you're faced with nothing left, you turn to prayer. You see it all the time. You see people who are uh, sworn atheists ask for prayers. Hey, if you're the praying type, can you pray over my family? We're going through, like, people just pray. They ask for prayers. And
Right.
at the time, I didn't really have a relationship with God. I was kind of angry with him and whatnot. But I remember saying to myself and praying to God and saying, give me an opportunity to breathe, give me a chance to live, and I will change things. If you let me live, I will change things for my kids. Because all I could think about that morning in the bathroom was my kids waking up and finding their dad dead on the floor. And I remember the emotion come over me, just thinking like how messed up that would be for my children. And when I took that breath, I was like, it was almost like I was having a conversation with myself, which is cheaper than therapy. If you ever need to, just talk to yourself. I was having a conversation with myself that morning, but with God the whole morning. And after I took that breath, I immediately said out loud, okay, God, I just made a promise to you that I was going to change things. You let me live, I'm going to do it. And it was crazy. Like, I literally I took a photo. I'll send you the photo too, so that you can have it. I took a photo that morning in the bathroom in the exact mirror that I was looking in. And I said to myself, this is the last time I'm going to look like this. This is the last time that I'm going to look like this. And I walked out into my living room and I threw in that DVD that I had that I was waiting until January. And I went ham in my living room, dude, for 25 minutes. And it was the hardest 25 minutes of my damn life. And about 5 minutes in, I hated the lady that was the modifier. She literally, like, Sean T is like, oh, you guys, if you can't do what we're doing, follow along with Tanya. She just had a baby. And I'm like, I couldn't keep up with her. I couldn't do anything. And I've met her since then. She's a wonderful woman. And if it wasn't for her modifying me through that program, I don't know that I would have got through it. But what I ended up doing was during that 25 minutes, there was a lot of things that I couldn't do at 400 plus pounds. I just kept telling myself, stay moving, stay moving, stay moving. And I kept saying, it's almost over. It's like I kept watching the clock on the thing. I would go, okay, 5 more minutes, 10 more minutes, like counting
Right.
down. And I'm like, and it was 25 minutes. That was it. And when I finished it, I was like, damn, that was the hardest 25 minutes of my life. And a lot of it, I just marched in place. I didn't even do I didn't do burpees. I wasn't doing push-ups. I was just like marching in place and staying moving. And when I got done, again, talking to myself that morning, I'm like, that was the hardest 25 minutes of my life. And the thing is that was not true. It was hard, but it was only hard for 25 minutes.
Yeah.
Being unhealthy, being overweight, being depressed, being anxious, that was hard 24 hours a day. 24 hours a day, my life was extremely freaking hard. That day I chose a hard for 25 minutes that was going to make me a better person.
Yep.
And I just started doing it every single day after that. And I didn't stop. And what was crazy was I had zero intentions of coaching other people. I had zero like my goal was to be alive. right? My goal was to not die. And I just started being accountable on my social media. And I said, you know what? I'm going to call myself out and I'm going to share this journey, because if I give up, everybody will know. And that's what I started doing. I just started being accountable on social media and just being like, today was day one of the rest of my life. And, it's crazy. When I think back to the beginning of it, so many people like laughed at it and, made fun of me and joked about it. And they're like, you're going to give up in 2 weeks. This isn't going to last. And then
there's something really funny to be said about that, because a lot of people don't understand that that's what it is. And I just said something yesterday that I had heard, because I listened to, I'll tell you right now, David Goggins is like, he pushes me harder than anyone. And I've never even
stay hard.
Exactly. But you'll never find a hater that is in a better place than you are. A person who's talking you down, and person who is telling you that what you're doing is you're not going to make it, and look at them. And I think that's the hardest part, right? Like, we have to figure out that we have to just look at the place where they're coming from to understand they're full of shit.
Absolutely. And I tell clients at Wes, I tell clients all the time. I always tell people, if somebody gives you advice and you don't like it, take a look at their life. Would you trade places with this person? If you would not trade places with this person, don't take their advice. Don't listen to them.
It doesn't mean that it's not easy to hear it, right? You still got to hear it.
Right.
Then you have to check. You got to do that check, and you got to go, hey, is this coming from a place where they, 90% of the time they're just jealous. They're like, I couldn't do
100%. 100%. And it was crazy too, because even a month into me, working out regularly, like I literally, like that first month, I lost like 20 pounds or more. And it was like a considerable, like noticeable difference in my face and everything. And I remember I was trying to figure out how I was going to continue doing it, because I had this DVD, but what was I going to do? Just do this one workout program for the rest of my life and just continue this DVD. So I ended up, my little sister, she worked with this girl who was, signed up with Beachbody as a representative and whatnot. And she had reached out to me at the time. And she basically seen like the drive in me. She's like, this dude is like not stopping. And she convinced me to get started. And, they were talking to me about the supplements and all these things and the nutrition plan, because at the time, all I was doing exactly what I knew from my younger years, because I was not overweight my whole life. Right. My whole life, I was a gym rat, Wes. Like I played sports in high school. I was always on the basketball court. I played football. I was a rugged kid. I used to do bodybuilding with buddies.
Isn't that like a misnomer though? Like, it's funny how that, because I in my head, it's the same thing, right? Okay. I'm a big dude, 6'3", probably weigh about 280 right now. I've been up to 350. When I was in high school, I weighed 260. I was always a big dude, right? But the difference was that when we were in high school, we were moving around. We were playing sports. We were playing football. We were playing basketball. We were playing baseball. We were always active, and we're eating because we're trying to take care of that situation. But now we're done. And I was a PE teacher for a while, and this was what I preached to kids all the time. I was like, you may right now like want to play basketball. You may want to play football in this class, but the fact of the matter is you're not going to do that after. You're going to have to exercise. Yep. You're going to have to eat right. Those are the things that you have to do. And I mean, you can 90% of weight loss is diet. Exercise, you can only do so much.
It's
right?
all.
Yeah.
It's all nutrition. And that was something that was a hard thing for me to really focus on and to learn. And it's one of the hardest things that I have with clients is anybody can rummage through a workout and drag themselves through 25 minutes of exercise.
But what does that burn though, right? Because at the end of the day, it's about calories in, calories out.
Exactly.
I was on the elliptical this morning for 30 minutes. I burned 350 calories according to what that elliptical said. What is 350 calories? I mean, now you go. Your body burns a day like 2,500. Now you go and you just took 300 off of that, and then you go eat 3,000. What's going to happen?
Well,
No.
just think of this: 300 calories. 300 calories is a 20-ounce soda,
Yep.
basically, and people drink like 10 of those a day.
Yeah.
Like, it's just it's absolutely madness, And when they finally like talked to, because at the time I was doing the old school steamed broccoli, rice, chicken.
Right.
Like that was what I was eating for every meal that first month, right? And it was like, and eggs, chicken, broccoli, rice. And it was funny, like it was working because I was so overweight, it didn't matter. Like it
Right.
was better than what I was doing. So, but I needed to kick it up a notch. So the end of December came, and my little sister that year for the holidays, she bought me for Christmas. She bought me my first bag of Shakeology, which I swear by that stuff. She bought it for me because I was broke, and I was trying to figure out. I'm like, how am I going to be able to sustain this? Because I drank it for an entire month in January, and it was like it was just such a game changer for me because I was able to get. I wasn't a big vegetables person. I was able to get all the nutrients and vegetables that I needed because it's a total nutrition supplement. It's not a protein shake.
Right.
And when I incorporated that, I noticed a big difference in my energy and everything, just after 7 days. Because it wasn't like, it's not magic. You still need to eat healthy with it. It's not a weight loss shake. It's what it is it's a supplement to go with total nutrition, right? So you need to be doing all the things because it's not gonna, you can't drink a shake and erase a Big Mac. That's not how it
Right.
works. So I was eating good, and I was utilizing supplements properly at the time, and I felt fantastic. And I'm like, how am I going to continue doing this? Because now I'm like, I'm a single dad. I you know our divorce was finalized. I don't get child support. Which is a whole nother story on its own, just because men on the receiving end of family court is tough. I had custody of the kids, so that's really what I focused on.
Yeah.
But at the time, I got WIC stamps for my youngest, who was going to age out of that at the time, which gave me $8 in produce, a gallon of milk a month, 2 loaves of bread, some cheese, some yogurt, and some other stuff. And I would stretch that to feed myself and my other son, as much as I possibly could. And so I'm trying to figure out, what am I going to do? Like, how am I going to continue these supplements? My electricity was about to be shut off. My car was about to be repossessed. I was unsuccessfully evicted from my apartment for over 2 years at that point. I had nothing. I had nowhere to turn. And what I ended up doing was, I had a credit card that had $145 left on it. And I I literally maxed it. It was the scariest moment, dude, because I had this credit card for, like, if I really had no food, that was like the backup. That was like, so I could at least buy my kids some bread and peanut
Right.
butter, and I took that credit card and I maxed it out, and I bought another fitness program. I signed up to become an independent coach, for a network marketing company, and got myself another bag of shakes. And I remember I almost sent it. It got delivered like, 3 to 5 days later, and I almost sent it back because I didn't have any money. And I'm like, I didn't know what I was going to do. But I had 2 months of sharing my entire life on social media, to the point where the moment that I told other people that I was able to help get them started, that my inbox just flooded. Now, mind you, I'm in a network of about 500,000 coaches, and we are probably 95% female. So in what I do and the realm that I work in, men are stubborn. We don't we don't join things.
Right.
It's predominantly female, and my customer base of 1,200 people is 95% female as well. But my inbox filled up, and I was like, okay, w- let me help you out. I'll never forget that my income that I generated from helping other people get healthy just by showing them that I was getting healthy kept my lights on. It kept my car from getting repossessed, and it fed my kids. And I was like, you know what? There's something to this that is going to help save me right now. I don't know how long it's going to last. I don't know how this is going to work. I had no idea what I was doing. And I remember, people making fun of me the first 2 months of me, working out. And then now I'm doing network marketing, and it's such a stigma. Like, now the haters are really coming, bro.
Right.
Like, I'm talking like family, friends.
Well, it works that way, right?
I'm-
Like, because like you're telling someone, okay, so what are you doing? And then you tell them, and they're like, oh, it's a pyramid scheme. Oh, it's this. Oh, it's that. Oh, it's blah blah. Like they just want to.
yes.
And that's one of the things. Like, the people who are successful can get past that. The people who are not can't. And I think that that's one of the hardest things
Yeah.
about network marketing is that people look at it as like I mean, I sat down with a guy one time who grabbed me I was changing tires for a living. He's like, hey, I want to sit down with you and have lunch. I'm like, okay. And I'm like, what's this guy want? Like, does he want to offer me a job at like where he
Yeah.
actually works or what? And he's like, hey, have you ever thought about selling Amway? And I'm like, nope, I'm out of here.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it's so here's the thing is we can think of these individual companies where we're like, yeah, no way. But then when I bring up the point to like, hey, your mom used to sell Tupperware. She used to sell Avon. She used to sell Mary Kay. Like, your friend that sells Sensi, your friend that does doTERRA essential oils, like these are all major companies that do it. Like, they're around for a reason. And the only thing that really and trust me, nobody talked more crap about network marketing than this guy. And I used to make fun of people just like myself all the time. And, when I swallowed my pride and ego about something that I had no idea about and didn't really understand, and I was simply just using talking points and opinions of other people to formulate my own opinion, I realized that, I was dead wrong, number one. Number two, I also realized that not every opportunity in individual business is the same. And, no matter what it is that you do, if you're a network marketer, if you benefit from whatever it is that you're using and you can apply it to your life and make your life better with it and share it to other people who might be able to better their life with it, and you're passionate about it, you'll be successful. I don't care what the product is. I don't care what the company is. I don't care what the compensation plan is. I've been for the last 7 years coaching people through network marketing to help teach them how to feed their kids. Like, that's what I did. And for me, it was a no-brainer, because for me it was me being able to do something that helped promote health in my house and teach my children that their dad can be healthy, and it taught them things. It was able to teach them. So when I signed up, man, I maxed out that card, and it was the scariest moment of my life, but it changed things. And it changed things so much that, I mean, that was just the beginning. That was 7 years ago. There is so much that's transpired over those 7 years. The people that have come into my life, the stories of people that have changed. I have a girl that I coach right now. She's lost 180 pounds, and she's in the running to win $100,000 this year.
Yeah.
She's taken back her life. Like, I mean, this woman she had a car accident. She was suffering from preeclampsia from one of her pregnancies, which I don't totally understand what that is, but listeners who know will understand.
Yeah.
She had brain surgery twice. Now, this is during me coaching her. She had brain surgery twice. She had a hernia surgery. And she's a complete rock star. She's probably one of the easiest people that I have ever coached, because she wanted to change so bad. She literally she came home to her husband having an affair while she was at her lowest point of her life. And she's completely changed her life. She's lost 180 pounds, and now she's in the running to win $100,000 for her life change. And it's like, for me to be able to do that, that's what really motivates me these days is helping other people just completely change their lives. It's crazy. And if it wasn't for this opportunity and what I'm doing, I wouldn't be in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
I met my wife in this opportunity. Like literally God dropped her in my life. And so 2018,
So I have to kind of slow us down
go
here.
ahead.
Here's kind of the thing. I want to invite you again because I think that here's the thing. We talked about this before. I think we've got through the Beachbody part, right? We've talked about all that
Yeah,
stuff, and I want to talk about the speaking stuff. But unfortunately, I have to go to work.
you got it. You got
So
it.
what I want to do is I want to invite you. I want this to be part one, and I'm wondering if you'll come back and we can talk about the speaking and everything else.
Absolutely, dude. Absolutely.
It's a good conversation. I think that people really need to hear what you have to say. I mean, this is one of the longest interviews I've done in a while, and it's just great to hear all this stuff. And I think that we have a great story to share. So we're going to come back with part two. We're going to talk about your speaking and all the other things that you're doing in addition to the Beachbody thing, because it's a great story.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Be
All
my
right.
pleasure, brother.
Perfect. Okay. So hang tight here. All right, everyone. Well, that is the end of the show for this time. This is part one with Craig Daigle. We're going to come back in a couple weeks here. We're going to do it again. We're going to see how it works on his schedule. We're going to do it again, and we're going to talk about the speaking engagements and stuff like that, because I think that it is highly important that you hear the rest of the story. Thank you for hanging out, and get ready for part two when it shows up. Until next time, I challenge you to find the shape of your success.